Hey, welcome to the Tech-Mex Podcast. We're your host, Eric Mando, and this is episode Cuarenta. We do the research on Bitcoin, tech, and wealth, so you don't have to. Dale. Dale.
Cabo Wabo. Man, I just saw your t-shirt. It's like, it would be nice to be in Cabo, you know?
Yeah. I miss it. Last night we had a wedding, so I was doing a lot of Cabo wobbling around the floor because it was open bar with a bunch of tequila. But everyone was safe, so that's good.
Nice. Talking about different places to travel, Hong Kong, they are about to list their ETF for Bitcoin. What do you think about that?
Hey, it's about time. They got to catch up with the times. We've been doing it since January. We're already in April.
I think that this is quite interesting because you need to have some instruments in Asia. So, and I mean, you and me, we have been old-timer crypto Bitcoin holders, right? And do you remember in 2013, China would move the market? But remember, sometimes people call it mainland China, which is kind of literally Hong Kong is kind of by themselves, and it's kind of in that gray area where they allow them to have this type of financial institutions. But right now, it's highly regulated, and in fact, it's banned as we speak. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. This is like the 10th time they banned it over there, isn't it?
I don't know if it's that exactly the 10th time, but yes. And I think that is just the big brother in China, that they don't allow it to have their money. But yeah, it's quite random.
Well, I wonder if it's going to spread. If Hong Kong's doing it, I wonder if eventually mainland's going to be able to claim the same thing, have some ETFs out there and unban Bitcoin again. But I don't know, they're kind of fickle. They make it okay, then they ban it, make it okay, then they ban it. I mean, I don't know if they do it just to try and mess with the market or something.
No, they're not fools. They see that there is a lot of inflow, and if they don't do it, they will come to America, to the United States, right? All of those funds. So basically that's what Hong Kong is doing, is approving the ETF. So that way, and it's a spot ETF. That's another thing, right? So because they have been approving others. But yeah, in that way, Chinese investors and all of that. I'm probably going to expect as well Singapore to also do it, and so on. You'll start seeing, and again, Asia is a big market too. We'll see some nice inflow. They're estimating several billions on that. We'll see, and it's right now for April 30th. That's when they are planning to.
So it's right around the corner. I mean, that's really good news. I mean, the market size, obviously not as big as what we've got in the U.S., right? With all the trillions that we've got going on. But, I think this is they're dipping the toe in, right? Once Hong Kong does it, maybe it'll start to spread. There's a lot of money over there. So I think it's only a matter of time, and it'll be real good things for the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Watch out the price. Let's see how it behaves. Maybe if it's a nice, or who knows, maybe they already start buying, right? Maybe that's the reason why we see it's still flat. But maybe by Wednesday when they open, we might see a hike. Hard to tell, right? You never know on that.
Yeah, and in terms of price right now, I think we've been seeing there's everyone, if you look at the news articles, everything's like, Bitcoin's crashing, things like that. But it really has been pretty stable within this channel over the last, month to 6 weeks. It's been going between 60, 70, 75, So it's been pretty steady. And really what that means is we're setting up a really good foundation at this price point,
It's they usually in the Wall Street, they call it an area of supply
support.
Support too, depending on who kind of trader you are, right? If you are more like technical, they call it support. But if you are more fundamental, they think that the offer and demand is a point where they think that is a good base. So and it's kind of, hopefully we are seeing this, and then we can see a nice basically take from here. But yeah, good news.
I was going to say, speaking of like on the technical analysis side, if you're looking at this it looks like it's setting up like a pretty strong bull flag or something like that. So from, if you're looking at that bull flag, it looks like the pole from the flag. If you put it to the end of the flag and on the upside, it looks like it's probably targeting up towards 100K. So that would be a really nice move. A lot of people say, well, wait until you confirm it, but it tends to move fast. So if you are thinking about it, really take not financial advice, y'all, but take a look at some of the charts, and you can see the bull flag forming. And if you take out the pole and check to see where the price target would be, it is pretty high up there. So
yeah, that was something interesting as well that happened. I'm starting to see more people saying that we're gonna hit in some point 1 million, which the first people that they say was Kathy Woods, right, and all of them, and it's like everybody was like, that's outrageous. How are we gonna get there? Right?
Smoking. It's not 420 yet.
But now you start seeing more people. Do you remember Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad? Yes. Now he's saying that is 2.3 million. I have no idea how he is able to get to that number. But
yeah, and it's really true. Here's the thing. A lot of people did not think there was going to be this much success and interest with the ETFs. So I think that really changed a lot of people's mindsets about where this could go. And, they started to redo their math, and they're seeing some higher levels. And if y'all are interested, we talked about a few of these a couple of weeks back. So take a look at some of our videos. We talked about the rainbow chart, this stock to flow model, some of what Kathy Wood was saying, and what Samson Mao was saying. They've got some really high price targets. Again, these are not necessarily immediate price targets, even though some of them are within this cycle. But we've got some explanations on kind of what it is for like a 1 to 2 year outlook, a 5-year outlook, and a 15-year outlook. And they are pretty enticing numbers.
Yeah, and I think that every time that we see this type of wealth coming, there's basically bad actors, right? So, and right now it's like it's Bitcoin a scam or a MLM, and it's confusing for people, right?
It is.
Because right now we are techies and we kind of understand, we can do our own research. We have done it for many years, almost more than a decade now.
Over.
But people like, my mom, or like people that are not very technically savvy, or they are not even very, very involved on all of these, they are falling prey to scams. So I hear this one. This is an interesting one. It's like they have an academy, and I'm not going to tell names, but it's just basically what you need to watch, right? Uh-huh. So they have this trading academy that they teach you how to trade Bitcoin. Well, that's not a problem, right? That's okay, right? But sometimes they're saying, you know what? Maybe you're not trading good. You're not getting 10% a day or whatever outrageous percentage, right? Yeah. And then they're asking them to send their coins to them so they can trade for them.
I gotcha.
And that's a recipe for disaster, man.
Yeah, not your keys, not your coins. I mean, that's something that we in the industry say, but that can be pretty tough because they work really well. This is the social engineering aspect of scammers, right? They kind of develop this relationship with you over time, and you start building trust. And then they're like, "Oh, you know what? If you want, I can do it for you."
Yeah,
and then your money's gone.
And we have seen it in billions, right? Like FTX. I mean, and it happened to even investors, savvy investors, that they were putting billions on the company. So don't feel bad if you were a scam.
Yeah, that's true.
Happened to anyone.
Happens to the best of us. I mean, yes. we've seen it too.
Yes, we have our share of. Maybe that's the reason why we try to warn the audience and our followers, because it happened to us like multiple times. Celsius, FTX, right, and MTGOX and Cryptsy, BTC. Yeah. I mean, the list is long.
It's a very, very long list, and it goes along with the history of crypto. But I get people come to me. They're super excited. They're like, "Oh, Eric, like I got this email about like this new system of where you can get like free or really cheap Bitcoin." I'm like, nope, don't click on it. They're like, no, but someone sent it to me and they said it was like it should be a really good thing because the price is going to go up, and they said I can make 100% in so and so time. I'm like, nope, don't click on it, don't do it. It sounds good, Don't do it. They're like, oh, here, I'm going to send you the link so you check it out. I'm like, hell no, I'm not clicking anything.
If it is too good to be true, guess what? It's not true.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's hard to tell the difference though, because I would imagine there's some things that are maybe okay, but by and large, there's going to be a lot of scams out there. Bitcoin has seen really large gains. So people understand that, oh man, well, I know Bitcoin doubles every year on average, right? Like, so this is in line with that. So it should be legit, I think. So it becomes, I think, a little bit harder for people to tell because they have expectations that, yes, it's going to go up higher. And even more so with a lot of the altcoins or other cryptos out there where they're seeing some other huge gains.
For those, it's like when you go to Vegas, assign some money that you can blow, right? Like whatever, your entertainment, gambling, whatever, right? Who are we to judge you? But for your assets to be able to have your kind of your own wealth, it's the time. We already mentioned this before in previous episodes. It's like expecting to buy a tree. I just went to buy a tree. That's the reason why that concept is very close. We went to buy a peach tree. I like peaches.
Peaches? Millions of peaches.
It's like, not sure if I'm digressing here, but the movie Mario Bros, right? The guy was singing peaches, peaches, peaches. Well,
Jack Black.
Jack Black, yes. So we went to buy this tree, and the tree is like, I don't know, maybe like this tall, right? A couple feet. And it's like, you want peaches, but it's like, that's the point, right? You have to grow it, you have to plant it, you have to fertilize it. It takes years, right, to start getting some of these fruits. And I think it's a good reminder to myself as well. Like, the good shit takes time.
You're right. And just a reminder, if you like this content, like and subscribe.
That doesn't take time, right? It's just a few seconds. So, and I think that's what kind of the best advice we can say. And this is not a financial advice, right? It's just to do it on the internet. This year, doesn't matter the asset that you're buying. Obviously, we are Bitcoin heads. So Maxi, like the OG degens. But
degens.
Yeah, I think that DCA basically buying. I have friends that they just buy like $50 a day, right? Like a amount of money, and every day, because you don't know. That's the problem. People don't know when it's gonna go up or when it's gonna go down. But they have done analysis that even doing that simple strategy of buying something daily basis or in a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, it kind of beats some other strategies.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, have you heard of these things? So I've had some friends ask me about this as well. Like there's like communities where people are part of this, and they have like group investment schemes. So like they all group together their money that they've got, and they say, okay, we're going to invest it in so and so, and you can expect this kind of return. Have you seen those types of groups? Is this what you're talking about? Like, is this the same thing as this MLM stuff that you might be seeing with Bitcoin?
Yeah, but it's different organizations. But yeah, MLM is very social. Usually, it's your friends. Usually, they have this pyramid scheme, right? Like then friends of friends. Unfortunately, sometimes it's your own family, your own friends, and they are in the middle because also they are getting a scam. So, and I think that the government they have to intervene in some of those. Because those are pyramid schemes, but the other ones, they are very hard to distinguish which one are good, because some investments are real and legit. Like some people, I have seen some of these organizations doing like real estate, and they do some private equity, right? And they create a company, and you can see all of that. You can see the papers. There's an escrow, etc., right? But even with that, there's also scams. So it's like, man, you cannot trust in anyone, right? Yeah. And I think that's the problem. Sometimes even when you were buying properties, the escrow, they are sending you email. Hey, make sure that you call us. This is the phone number, right? Or just Google us, right? Because in that way, you're not sending funds to another company that is not us. So it is hard. It is hard. To know.
And so, always be careful. I know sometimes it can be friends and family that get you in. but the promises are maybe just too big. I think maybe that's one of the really good things about the ETFs that have come out, right? And like same thing in Hong Kong is like it's legitimate. Like if you have a Charles Schwab account or a Vanguard account or something like that, you can go in and just go in and buy a Bitcoin ETF. You don't have to be worried about, okay, I'm going to get scammed, or I'm going to buy something I'm not supposed to, or I'm going to lose my password. It does make it pretty easy just to get into it. So that's a really, really good thing. It's lowered the barrier for just anybody to really go in and buy. You just have to know which one to buy in. All the Bitcoin ETFs are generally the same. Some take a little bit higher fee than others, but generally they're all around 0.2 or 0.25%.
Depending who do you like, right? If you like the bros from BlackRock, I bet, right? I bet.
Cathy Wood, ArcB, there's Van Eck, which is HODL. I like HODL. That's fun.
Or I prefer FBTC.
FBTC. There's Fidelity. BitB, BITB, like all of these. You can look into them. I think we have plans to kind of do a breakdown of the ones that are out there that are popular, and we can kind of talk a little bit about the fees that they charge. But a lot of them right now actually aren't charging fees for the first like 6 months. So that's probably through July, or their first $1 billion of, I guess, in fees. So I think right now, you can get them for a extra cheap price, but in general, the fees are pretty low because they're trying to be competitive with each other.
Yeah. And obviously the best one will be for you to hold them, but there might be some risk if you're holding them, because that's how a lot of Bitcoins have been like poof, because some people, they didn't understand how to hold them, because if you start having like a 1 million, it's sizable, right? So, and again, it takes some ramp up to do it, and sometimes you just keep it in a wallet that might be accessible by hackers. So you have to do your research. Sometimes I think that maybe that product there is a need. It's very hard for somebody to take your stocks, right? So there is more scrutiny by the government. Everybody's kind of watching there, right? So yes, I think that there was a need, and we can see it because it has been very, very successful.
Yep, it's super popular. So don't fall for the FOMO. If it smells fishy, don't do it. And there are these other vehicles that are a lot easier to get into Bitcoin if you just want to start slowly getting into it. And I always tell people, when you have some skin in the game, like as in you buy a little bit, you start watching it more, you start really paying attention to the price more, you start paying attention to the trends a little bit more, rather than, researching it from the outside without having any skin in the game. So that's what I usually tell people. Even just do a little bit, because that'll change your mindset a little bit.
Totally agree. So what is next?
Well, speaking of communities, have you heard about this? Gen Z, man. I swear, like they're all into the retro stuff. So much so they're bringing back MySpace. They're just calling it Nospace.
Yes, I think that maybe it's funny because it might be, but it's not nostalgia because they were not born there, but I can see it like in the shows like Stranger Things, right? 80s, the music. I even see like sometimes my daughters, they're like, baby, that's from the 90s. The way that they're dressing, right?
Well, you know what? Maybe it's like this thing where, it was like they reference it like, oh man, that was back in the good times, in the good old days, in the 80s and 90s, kind of like in the way like a lot of Americans see back like in the 50s, like, it was kind of this fun era. Everyone's like dancing, listening to rock and roll, drinking their milkshakes. It kind of has this feel about it, right? The certain vibe. And maybe that's how the Gen Z is seeing like 80s and 90s also.
Probably.
That's the same kind of feel.
Yeah. And now, okay, tell me more about Nospace. I haven't seen it.
Okay, so Nospace, I mean, just from what I can tell, by the way, it's not really generally available. There's a huge waiting queue. It's like 380,000 people waiting in line to try and get this. But for those of y'all that aren't familiar with MySpace, I mean, it was from the 2000s, early 2000s. And basically, it's like you create your own profile. So you say, hey, my name's Eric Ramirez. You know, I'm into crypto. I'm into Bitcoin. I'm into AI. And you kind of share this information. You're like, these are the bands I'd like to listen to. Hey, I just watched this Netflix show. It was really cool. I encourage y'all. And I think it's supposed to try and encourage a little bit more social interaction that's more like with your friends and things like that. And it has a whole wall where you can write on people's wall and things like that. So that's kind of what MySpace was. There's aspects of it that are very similar to Facebook because Facebook took some of this stuff from MySpace too, right? So MySpace was kind of pre-Facebook time.
Do you remember the guy? Because MySpace, you could see obviously all your friends, but there was always one person, which was Tom, I believe, right? Tom was the always your friend. Like he was appended or added to every single profile.
Everybody. It was like your initial first friend.
Your first friend was Tom, and he was one of the founders, I believe, of MySpace. So the guy ended up like with millions and millions of friends, right? Because he just added himself.
Yeah,
to all
it's
of
like,
the
hey,
profiles.
I'm your buddy.
Yes. So we'll see if these guys do something similar. It would be epic if they put like Tom, you know?
Yeah, he's back. Hey, Tom's here again. Tom's back.
Tom is back.
Man, you know, one of the things that I remember a lot about MySpace was like, that was early days. So it was kind of easy to like hack it. Like you can go in and like hack it and change people's information and stuff like that. You can send messages from people. Like it was really interesting. Like back then there was, or at least early on, it didn't
you
have
can even
legitimate
inject code.
safeguards.
So that way we'll load some other stuff. So yes, it was very easy to hijack it.
Yeah, it was kind of fun back in the day. Of course, I don't, you know what? It would be really fun if they did like an Easter egg or something like that, where people can also recreate, because that's what made it. I thought that was fun, is trying to get into people's accounts, and I know people you knew. It's not like random, like you're doing malicious stuff, but kind of funny. That'd be kind of funny if they could rebuild some of that in there.
So who is doing this? Or how did you find out this one?
Oh, I just saw it on my TikTok stream. So I don't know. I got to get on the wait list so I can see if I get access to it. But I really like this concept of kind of better social interaction that we have right now, because maybe people are getting tired of just this straight up, just like this one too many approach of like the Twitter and things like that, or X. It's maybe a little bit more geared towards social interactions. It's still very similar to Facebook, so I'm not sure how they're going to like differentiate it, right?
Yeah, or even Snapchat, right? That they would try to be kind of different, and they had the concept of disappearing messages, and that way your parents are not there, because that's what happens when your parents are in the social media. Then it's not cool. Then you move to the next.
And maybe that's just the key. Maybe that's the key. This is just for the younger folks. Everyone already has connected with their grandma and their tios and tias on Facebook, so they're like, okay, well, we need something new just for us, right? And maybe that's why it's been created like this.
Yeah. Maybe their moms and their aunts are already dancing in TikTok already. So,
oh yeah. Well, I think they're supposed to actually be launching here in this summer, so people should be able to start getting in there fairly soon. But I'm very curious to see how it's going to go up. I think we've talked about it. We've got some ideas for a social application as well. Maybe it's something that we'll share with y'all. So once we get something going, but I think that's where things are going. People are looking for more authentic, realistic connections, and that's maybe the direction they're trying to go into.
Yeah.
Well, we got a little bit philosophical there, but you know what else is going on in tech? Goldman Sachs is now saying that anyone that's studying coding or engineering right now, doing software engineering, they need to also study philosophy. You believe that?
Interesting. Why? Why they say that philosophy?
Okay, so they're saying philosophy because philosophers are notorious for like their critical reasoning, thinking through kind of hard problems, being able to explain kind of difficult concepts in a way that is really attainable by the general mass audience. Well, they're saying these skills are going to be useful when you're talking to AIs. So prompt engineering, things like that, or when you're having to try and explain something to an AI, those skills, specific skills, are going to be super helpful for people that are working kind of today in a technical field, because the technical fields today are going to change, right? We're just around the corner of AIs being able to write any code that we need. So the real skill is going to be understanding the technical aspects, but then also being able to communicate with your robot boss, like we said last week, or just any AI that's out there.
Have you heard that the life that you have is the result of the questions that you ask, which is interesting to think about it. But yeah, if you're asking yourself, how do I make this amount of money, in this time frame, or how I can get to that school? So I think that it's true. Philosophers are trying always to think those type of questions. So I can see that. I was trying to internalize why will be interesting, but yeah, is they give you clarity at least to be able to ask what type of questions they need to be asked, which for prompt engineering, that's literally what it is. It's just
exactly
prompting.
I mean, you've got to be curious. You have to have a curious mindset, asking the right questions. That's where you're going to really get to the point where you understand other people's viewpoints, really understand what's driving them, their motivations, things like that. And so they're saying as the AIs get better and smarter, a little sentient, right? We're going to have to talk to them in a way like this. And that's how they're going to grow. That's how they're going to get better as well. That's how they're going to be able to understand what your thought process is as the engineer or the prompter that's asking them to do something.
Yeah, I think that is some of those future skills that you're still going to have, right? Like creativity. Sure, AI might be able to do a movie on the fly in a couple seconds, but you still have to weave a story, the creation, the emotions, the feelings. And yes, at the end of the day, the machine, it will be very good on certain things. But I think the creativity, that's where maybe these will become those tools. It's like when you're seeing like a Star Wars, the robots are not the protagonists, right? They are helpers to help the kind of in the story of Star Wars is basically helping them around to fly or to go around to translate information. So sometimes the culture on movies kind of gives some idea on the social behaviors. So similar here though, where if you think about it, maybe those could be your extensions, your tools, but you still have to have maybe the clear thinking, like philosophy or creativity, to be able to have all of these ideas. It would be nice when the robot is going to say, you know what, I want to go to Cabo. I don't want to work the next week. That's when we will have a trouble, right? Because then they're going to try to rule the world.
That's too funny. But, this concept of kind of speaking in plain language to explain these concepts. I mean, when we're all learning to code and things like that, you talk about pseudocode, right? You just kind of think out a problem in normal terms and normal words, and then that's how you start chunking out your code, right? So it's kind of a similar concept there. So for those of y'all that are like have an arts degree or like English or philosophy, maybe consider like dipping your toe in some tech, because places like Goldman Sachs and things like that, they're starting to look at this in a different way. They want you to also have some of these other verbal fluency type skills alongside with some of these technical skills. And maybe they might lean more towards those a little bit more right now, because they might be very technical. So very interesting kind of turn of events there. So look for prompt engineering. Maybe that's something that you can get with your English or philosophy degree.
Yeah, that's a great segue for our next area, which is the wealth and mindset. So this week, Katie, my wife, she was very interested in this book that she's reading. It's called Bad Therapy. Have you heard about it?
Bad Therapy?
Bad Therapy, yes. And basically, kind of the tagline of the book is Why the Kids Aren't Growing. And the author is Abigail Shear. I have no idea how to pronounce her last name. But, because we are bouncing, we have two kids. They are kind of almost getting to teenager years. Our kids right now is like they are more anxious, more obese, more addictive, and more depressed, right? And that's the reason why we are kind of doing our own as parents. Kind of what is there, because sometimes you are second guessing, right? It's like, am I doing it right? Right? It's like, am I actually being a good parent, right? So no wonder why we are doing some of these researches to try to figure it out. And this concept of gentle parenting, and you see them around, but it never clicked with me and my wife. We are not gentle parents. And I explain you what is that, right? And that term is basically when you see a parent that, oh no, I cannot put them in timeout, or I'm not gonna tell them no ever. It's like, again, sounds maybe too obvious for us, but there's a lot of folks doing that, right? And the research says that it's not working. And again, this book goes through just telling what is going on. And basically, it gets to a point where the kids see that their parents are miserable. The kids are literally seeing, like, maybe I don't want kids neither.
That's too much trouble.
Because the parents, they can see that they are having two faces where they are telling the kid, yeah, everything is awesome. And it's not, right? Like they are still angry and they're still frustrated and they cannot get across the kids. And the kids kind of understand that maybe there's something going on. But yeah, what's your take there?
Well, I think we've seen some of this already playing out, right? We see a lot of on the news and things like that. And I think there was someone on MSNBC, kind of very well known already. He's got hundreds of millions of dollars already, and he's speaking out. He's like, look, there's a lot of this current generation right now, Gen Z. They're like, they don't see a way to get to the point where their parents are. I think we've already seen that the stats show that this generation, they're not going to do as well. And the kids are believing it. And I say kids, but these are already adults, younger adults. They believe it. They're not going to do as well as their parents. There's so many things that are against them right now with the economy, with the inflation, not being able to buy homes because they're very expensive, things like that. I remember, like, my parents, they bought a house for, it seems like very, very cheap, right? It, like, $60,000 to $80,000 back in, I guess, the 80s or something like that, right? And something like that right now is well over $500,000, right? So that's just, I guess, 40, it's still 40 years ago, but that's a big jump. Have salaries grown that same amount in that time? I think we're seeing that it hasn't. And so it's becoming a lot harder to get to that same wealth status as the previous generations.
And that's terrible, right? Where it is one of the first generations, and even in that book, mentioned it that they don't feel that this generation can be better than the previous one, and it's weird, right, to think that you cannot do better. So talking about the wealth, I'm not too concerned about inflation, because inflation is kind of there. It's always, as you said, our grandparents were paying X amount of money, and the Great Depression, right, they were paying another. So I'm not too concerned on inflation. I'm more concerned on the high interest rates. Because for us, we enjoy 10, 15 years of almost 2% interest rate, right? Yep. And hopefully maybe in the next couple of years, they start lowering them down, but they cannot lower them down very abruptly. Who knows? Because this year is presidential election year, right? So
you might have a chance this year. Be ready.
But I remember, dude. Did I tell you the story about my apartment when I was 19?
Yeah, what's that?
So I made some money when I was a teenager, and that's the point that I was trying to make with the interest rates, because over there in Mexico City, or Mexico in general, is 10%, and it has been there for a while. So for me, it's like, yeah, it sucks, but people still get loans, and people still kind of have to buy their things. That's what you have, right? That's literally, is that, or you don't buy an asset, a house or a car.
Yeah.
So anyways, I opened a little company. It was a service company, IT services. And we just were getting customers. I was about 18, about 18, 19. And I saved up some cash from all of that. And suddenly I went with this realtor. And the realtor kind of like saw me. Obviously, I was young, and 1920 is like he told me something like when your parents are gonna come. he actually thought that it was the property for somebody else, not for me.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, man. That kind of pissed me off. But I can see why. It's like
now, obviously, you can, right?
yes. When I was 19, obviously, I was like blind, right? It's like, and I got upset. It's like in the spot, and I usually tend to, like be more aggressive. And it's like
you
it's
aggressive now.
It's like, are you gonna sell me this apartment or not? And the guy is like, and then he still doubted me, right? Because like, he's like, how are you gonna pay for it? He said like something also very bluntly, and I said, well, because he knew that maybe I would not be able to get a loan, and I said, well, in cash, obviously.
Duh.
so yeah, it's like, but the guy is like, then he changed his attitude. Oh, maybe this guy is actually legit, right? And it turned out that I actually purchased that apartment. At an age of 20, I was in that transition between 19 and 20, and I got that apartment. But my point here is that I feel that every generation, the time passes, there is high interest rates and there is inflation. You have to figure it out, and it's tough. But I think that it brings to maybe how this generation is a little bit more not too resilient. And you came from A&M. You were telling me that they teach you certain kind of traits.
Yeah, I think more so than teaching, it's just kind of this culture that there is there. A&M is kind of a farm ag school when it was developed, right? So it's a lot of rural areas, went to school there, and they have kind of this different mindset. They're just very resourceful. They're all about, just get her done. Like that's really what matters. It's not necessarily like follow the steps, do the rules, make sure like you do it the proper way. It's more like, look, you've got limited resources, but we have to figure out how to get to that point. And that's a lot of the mindset that we had. And that's why I think a lot of the engineering trades and things like that grew out of that, because it's really about problem solving, figuring out how to achieve the goal that you're trying to get to. And so I think, that really applies across the board to a lot of different things. And, in some cases you're going to fail, like things aren't going to work out, but sometimes they do. And so without that risk, there's no reward. So I think it's that mindset of trying things out that is really might help some of the generations right now.
Yeah. The book, it was also interesting that it was talking about traumas and how sometimes psychologists right now, they are in a pickle, because if they are not compliant, they get banned, right? So they are changing some of their way how they provide therapy and all of that. But one of them, it was because you are an immigrant, you have a trauma, or your parents were immigrants, you have a trauma. So basically, kind of the children in different states, they have been given assessments to see if they are suffering for any of these type of traumas. But they are implying because you are an immigrant, you automatically they understand, well, you probably have a trauma already.
you check that box pretty quick. Typically, you have to do more with less, right? So, I mean, it's pretty extraordinary when you see immigrants or children of immigrants. Typically, if they make it to college and things like that, I mean, that's a very, very remarkable thing, just because typically they don't have as many opportunities, as many resources. And so that really shows a lot about the grit, the character, and things like that about the kids. So I think there's some truth to that.
But a lot of wealthy people, though, actually, they are from immigrant parents. So that's what it shows, that children of immigrant actually do better as adults. So, and they don't subscribe to the gentle parenting, where
no, they subscribe to the chancla and the cinto, right?
or the spatula.
The spatula,
like my mother-in-law. So, I think that as a parent, it's always tough. You don't know what because literally you are experimenting with your kids, right? Like you don't know, you've never been a parent,
right?
But ultimately, if you love them, it'll show up, right? Like your kids will still talk to you, right? So I think that is just if you do care for them and love them and they understand that, you'll do fine. But yeah, do your own research, right? It's just our own impression, but I don't subscribe to gentle parenting. I don't think that works.
So what do you think? What's your outlook? Is there hope for this generation?
You know, that's an interesting one. I remember talking about, I met Jamie Dimon in 2018, and that was one of the questions that I asked about millennials. And the other one was about Bitcoin. And just for that, he said, yeah, blockchain is interesting, it's good. He's going to be working on banking. But he actually did a rant, like 15 minutes, on talking about generation. And he said, it's funny what he said actually. He said his generation, it was the 70s. And he said that they were told that they were the pothead generation.
The hippies. Peace,
the hippies.
Peace, dude.
Yeah, so he said, well, and now look at us. We actually are running the planet. We are running the world. So he was not too negative about the generations. So I think that I subscribe to that. I think that we see the older generation or the new generations thinking, well, the boomers didn't do it right. You know, the millennials or the Gen Zers or the alphas are all depressed, right? I do see hope. Maybe it's my own background as an entrepreneur that I try to be more positive. But I think that they need help. And that's one of the reasons why we are doing this pod.
Exactly right. So just in case you don't remember, like and subscribe to the content, share with your friends. That's why we're doing this, is to help the generation. I think what's also important to know is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's this thought of hormesis, right?
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. Like it's, without that struggle, without the difficulty, you're not going to get the best outcome. So anything that's worthwhile is going to be difficult to do.
There's another book that I recommend people to read. And it's funny that you were talking about philosophers. I do consider this guy a new philosopher on this generation that is alive. And one of them is Nassim Taleb. The guy make 1 billion in a day.
1
billion in a day in trading. So he's from Wall Street. Worth reading his content. He literally, maybe a segue to that is the way that he did his money is that he's saying there's going to be a crash. And even that people don't think that it's going to be, there's always are. And actually the numbers, because people say, no, the possibilities of a crash is just 1 in a million. Well, he bets for 1 that in a million. And all of his studies, the last 25, 30 years of studies in money and Wall Street, it has been on that notion, on crashes. And actually, he has another book that he calls it Black Swan. So how shit happens, how COVID happened, or things like that, like random events, right? And his whole research is about randomness. And one of his books is called Anti-Fragile. And his literally is just that premise that what you're talking, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that how in biology and in the universe, you have to be resilient, and how sometimes knowing that, how you are able to be anti-fragile, and how you can look into that, how literally you can maybe when you have your net worth, how if something like COVID happens, how you can actually make more money and things like that, right? So in a process of like your immune system, how even when you are getting a cold, how you can even get stronger, right? Good book. I do recommend it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But yeah, that's how you form diamonds, right? Under a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure and temperature. Yes.
Yeah. So you got to be able to take the heat.
I like that. Diamond hands.
They used to call us hot boys. Shout out to the hot boys out there from Texas A&M.
I don't know what those hot boys did, man.
They'll know what I'm talking about. But all right. Well, you know what? Just a reminder. Like, subscribe, comment. We love to hear from you. If you haven't watched our viral Bitcoin all-time high meme remix, go check it out on our channel. I think we're nearing 9,000 on one of them and maybe 1,500 on the other. Just a thought to think about. How have you felt today? You know, you need to keep trying, keep going. Without failure, you're not going to grow. So I think that's a wrap. Dale.
Bye.